The funeral dirt was still fresh on my father's grave when my stepmother threw my duffel bag down the grand marble staircase. "Pack your bags and get back to your military base," Candace screamed, her face twisted in pure venom. "This estate is mine now, and you don't belong under my roof." My half-brother smirked beside her, holding a shred of an outdated will like a trophy. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shed a tear. As an active duty officer, I'd faced far deadlier enemies than two greedy opportunists. I simply looked her dead in the eye, picked up my bag, and said, "Okay." What Candace didn't know was that 48 hours earlier, I had quietly inherited all $40 million of my father's true empire. Follow my story until the very end, and comment below which city you're watching from, so I can see how far my voice reaches. My name is Willow Grant. I am 32 years old, and for the past 10 years, I've served as a major in the United States Army. I've led soldiers through hostile terrain, managed high-stakes operations under fire, and learned that true discipline means keeping your composure when everything around you descends into chaos. But nothing in my military career prepared me for the ambush waiting inside my own childhood home. I had taken emergency leave the moment the Red Cross message reached my station. My father, Arthur Grant, had passed away suddenly from heart failure. By the time my flight touched down in Virginia, the rain was pouring, washing over the fresh wreaths laid at his memorial. Still wearing my service dress uniform, duffel bag slung over my shoulder, I pushed open the heavy oak double doors of the Grant Manor, hoping for a moment of quiet grief in the house where I grew up. Instead, I was met with cold hostility. Standing at the top of the grand marble staircase was my stepmother, Candace, alongside my 26-year-old half-brother, Julian. Candace wore tailored black silk and diamond earrings that cost more than a year of my military pay, her arms crossed tight against her chest. Before I could even take off my coat, Candace sneered down at me. "Don't bother unpacking, Willow," she announced, her voice echoing off the foyer walls. "Your father is gone, and so is your welcome. This estate belongs to us now." Julian let out a dry, condescending laugh as he descended the stairs, clutching a thick stack of papers bound in a blue legal folder. He held it up like a trophy, waving the crisp pages in my face with a triumphant smirk. "Take a good look, Major," Julian mocked, his voice dripping with arrogance. "This is Dad's last will and testament from 5 years ago. He left the entire family estate, the primary company shares, and the penthouse in Manhattan to Mom and me. You chose your little camouflage adventure and a modest government paycheck over the family business. So you get nothing, not a single cent, and certainly not a bedroom in our house." Candace walked.
If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with others. Your likes and shares mean a lot to us. Stay connected for more amazing stories.
Down to join him, stepping directly into my personal space with cold, calculating eyes. Arthur's final wishes were very clear. Bloodline loyalty matters, but actual loyalty matters more. You weren't here to manage his household or keep his social calendar. We were. I looked at the two of them, keeping my expression entirely neutral. The sheer hypocrisy was breathtaking. During the 6 months my father's health had steadily declined, I was the one coordinating his medical consultations from thousands of miles away, checking on his vitals daily between deployment briefings. Candace was off vacationing in the French Riviera on his credit cards, while Julian was crashing $500,000 sports cars and begging his dying father to quietly settle his gambling tabs. Neither of them had spent a single quiet evening by Arthur's bedside. Yet here they were, eager to dance on his grave and claim a fortune they believed was rightfully theirs. What Candace and Julian didn't realize was that 48 hours before my father passed, I had sat in a confidential meeting that changed everything. My flight had initially landed 2 days early on emergency compassionate leave. Instead of heading to the estate, my father's personal attorney, Raymond Vance, met me at an understated conference room in downtown Richmond. Raymond was my father's oldest confidant, a man Arthur trusted far more than the slick corporate lawyers hovering around his business. Raymond had placed a thick, sealed, leather-bound dossier on the mahogany table between us. Inside were forensic financial audits, offshore registry filings, and certified private investigation reports. Arthur had discovered months prior that Candace was not only conducting an affair with a regional banking executive, but she and Julian had also systematically funneled millions out of company payroll accounts into foreign dummy corporations. My father was heartbroken by their betrayal, but he was far from defenseless. Arthur had spent the final months of his life quietly outmaneuvering them. He revoked the outdated 5-year-old draft will Julian now held so proudly. In its place, Arthur established an irrevocable private family trust, naming me as the sole executor and primary beneficiary. The portfolio was staggering: prime commercial real estate holdings across 3 states, controlling ownership stakes in defense technology firms, and liquid offshore investment accounts totaling over $40 million. "Your father wanted you protected, Major Grant," Raymond had told me solemnly, handing over the authenticated certificates and private access keys. He knew their greed would show its face the moment his heart stopped. "Everything he built is in your hands now, every single dollar." I had kept that knowledge locked tightly away, allowing Candace and Julian to play their hand first. The brilliance of my father's final strategy lay not just in what he gave me, but in what he left behind for Candace and Julian. It was a calculated poison pill disguised as a grand inheritance. When Arthur uncovered their embezzlement schemes, he realized that simply disinheriting them would trigger months, if not years, of bitter probate battles. Instead, he chose to let their own insatiable greed deliver the punishment. Over his final 6 months, Arthur restructured every asset tied to the outdated will they thought they controlled. He took out massive second mortgages against the Grand Manor, totaling over $3.2 million, while encumbering the Manhattan penthouse with outstanding structural improvement loans. Furthermore, he transferred the commercial supplier liens and mounting operating debts of his older manufacturing units straight into the shell companies Candace had illegally formed. Every dollar extracted from those encumbrances was quietly deposited into the Whitaker Grant Irrevocable Trust under my sole control. Candace and Julian thought they were ruthlessly seizing $30 million in luxury real estate and prestigious corporate shares. In reality, the legal entities they were fighting so desperately to claim were suffocating under $5 million in impending debt, unpaid property taxes, and immediate vendor default notices. By aggressively demanding every asset listed in the 5-year-old draft, they were walking straight into a financial minefield of their own making. They were willing to destroy me for a mountain of liabilities, completely unaware that every cent of actual equity had vanished into my accounts 48 hours before my father drew his last breath. The formal estate distribution meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock sharp inside the glass-walled executive boardroom of Grant Enterprises. Candace and Julian arrived 20 minutes early, dressed head to toe in designer labels, looking like royalty about to be crowned. Candace wore an extravagant cream-colored Chanel suit, carrying an alligator skin handbag and radiating absolute triumph. Julian strutted behind her, casually flipping through his phone as if he already ran the multi-million-dollar empire. Their private corporate lawyer sat beside them, a smug expression plastered across his face as he laid out their 5-year-old draft will. The moment the heavy double doors opened, their smiles widened, expecting me to enter broken, weeping, and ready to plead for a settlement. Instead, I stepped into the room in my pressed Army service uniform, back straight and eyes locked on them. Flanking me was Raymond Vance, carrying 2 sealed steel briefcases and an entire team of senior financial auditors. "Colleen, or Major Grant, I should say," Candace began with false sweetness, leaning back in her leather chair. "I hope you've accepted that today is just a formality. We're willing to offer you a small relocation allowance out of the kindness of our hearts." Raymond didn't sit down. He unlatched the briefcases, pulled out authenticated probate filings, and slammed the heavy folders onto the mahogany table. "Mr. and Mrs. Grant, the 5-year-old document in your possession was officially revoked 6 weeks prior to Arthur Grant's passing," Raymond declared, his voice echoing with absolute legal finality. Under the Whitaker Grant Irrevocable Trust, Major Willow Grant is the sole heir to $40 million in liquid capital, proprietary technology patents, and prime commercial holdings. Candace's smug smile vanished. Her face drained of all color as Raymond turned the next page. As for the residential manor and shell companies you fought so viciously to claim, you own them outright, along with $5.4 million in immediate personal debt obligations. The boardroom collapsed into pure, unadulterated chaos. Candace's corporate lawyer frantically scanned the certified deeds and forensic audit reports, his hands trembling before he whispered to her that the filings were airtight, binding, and completely irreversible. Candace jumped to her feet, knocking her chair backward. "This is fraud! This is an illegal conspiracy!" she shrieked, her composed facade crumbling into desperate hysterics. "Arthur would never do this to his own family. You manipulated him, Willow." Julian grabbed the table, his breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps as the reality set in. His sports cars, his country club memberships, and his lavish lifestyle were all tied directly to the corporate accounts, now frozen by creditors. Within 48 hours, the banks would initiate foreclosure on the encumbered manor, and process servers would arrive with default notices for millions in personal liabilities. I didn't flinch. I slowly stepped toward the head of the conference table, looking down at both of them with the cold precision of a military commander who had just closed the perimeter. "My father didn't manipulate you, Candace. He simply allowed you to harvest exactly what you spent months planting behind his back," I said, my voice steady and completely emotionless. I pressed the intercom button on the wall. Within seconds, building security entered the boardroom and stood at attention on either side of the double doors. I looked Candace dead in the eye, mirroring the exact cruel smirk she had given me on the grand staircase just days before. "Security will escort you off the premises immediately," I said quietly, "because just like you told me, you don't belong here." 3 months later, the foreclosed manor was auctioned off by the lenders, and Julian was forced into bankruptcy, taking an entry-level logistics job just to pay off his creditors. Candace moved into a cramped suburban apartment, her designer lifestyle completely gone. I took the $40 million and established the Arthur Grant Veteran Transition Foundation, funding housing, mental health resources, and career training for returning service members. My father's true legacy wasn't gold or greed. It was honor, discipline, and standing tall against those who try to break you. Standing in front of the new foundation headquarters, I felt a deep sense of peace knowing Arthur's life work was finally serving a noble purpose. Now I want to ask you, what would you have done if you